You are 3 kilograms soaking wet and completely unable to protect yourself from anything. No crib, no monitor, no pediatrician, just the cold, the dark, and every predator that can smell a newborn. If even one of your direct ancestors had failed to keep a baby exactly this fragile alive, you simply would not exist. So, how did ancient humans keep something this helpless alive, generation after generation, for 300,000 years straight? This is Nock, and curled against his leg, half asleep, is Ash, a wolf pup who is also, technically, someone's fragile baby. Tonight, Nock isn't hunting or building. He's doing something far more urgent, keeping a newborn breathing until morning. And the real answer to how they pulled this off isn't a survival hack. It's one of the most sophisticated things humans ever built. Here's the wild part. Much of what kept that baby alive, the modern world has quietly, carefully taken apart. So let's start with the question nobody asks first. Why human babies are catastrophically harder to keep alive than any other animals. A baby giraffe hits the ground, stands up, and is running from lions within 1 single hour of being born. A human newborn cannot lift its own head for weeks. It cannot even control its body temperature on its own. This isn't a design flaw. Evolution made a very specific, very strange trade, and the trade-off's name is your brain. A newborn human brain is only about a quarter the size it will eventually become as an adult. Chimpanzees, our closest living relative, are born with almost half their adult brain size already built. Scientists call this secondary altriciality. Humans are essentially born premature on purpose by evolutionary design. Here's why. A fully grown human brain simply could not fit through the birth canal at all. So evolution's solution was blunt. Push the baby out early and finish building the brain out here, exposed, dependent. Then versus you today. Your own baby pictures likely looked exactly this fragile, this unfinished, this entirely dependent. Then versus you today. Your body still carries that same unfinished brain design every single time a baby is born. Which means one truth was locked in from the very beginning. No human baby has ever survived completely alone. You've heard the phrase, it takes a village. In Nock's world, that wasn't a nice saying. It was survival math. In most animal species, one mother alone raises her young, with little or no outside help at all. Humans broke that rule completely. Anthropologists call it cooperative breeding, and it may be our single greatest advantage. Researcher Sarah Hrduy calls humans cooperative breeders, the only great ape where non-mothers routinely help raise someone else's child. Grandmothers, aunts, uncles, older cousins, even unrelated neighbors, all shared the exhausting, relentless work of keeping children alive. There's even a name for the grandmother's role. Researcher Kristen Hawkes calls it the grandmother hypothesis. The idea, women evolved to live decades past childbearing age specifically to help raise their grandchildren instead. And it worked. In studied hunter-gatherer groups, a living grandmother measurably raised her grandchildren's odds of survival. Then versus you today, it takes a village being called a cliché is itself proof of how far that village has shrunk. Fathers weren't absent, either. Quite the opposite of the caveman stereotype you're probably picturing right now. Among the AKA people of Central Africa, fathers stay within arm's reach of their infants nearly half the day. Here's the wild part. Many hunter-gatherer fathers were measurably more hands-on than the average father in industrialized nations today. Then versus you today. That's a level of hands-on fatherhood many modern dads would find genuinely hard to match. Even Ash's own kind never raises pups alone. A wolf pack shares guarding, feeding, and babysitting duty every single day. So a human child wasn't just born to two parents. It was born into an entire, overlapping web of caretakers. No single adult was ever allowed to become the one point of failure between a child and death. But the village couldn't watch a baby every second. So ancient parents solved a second, brutally practical problem. You are a mother in Knox world. You need to walk for hours gathering food over rough, uneven ground. You cannot put your baby down. A crying, unattended infant is basically an invitation sign for anything that hunts. The answer was constant physical contact, carrying the baby against the body, essentially every waking hour of the day. Your own body still remembers this. Touch a newborn's palm right now, and it will grip your finger instinctively hard. Here's the wild part. That same grasping reflex still activates in every human newborn born on Earth today. That grasping reflex is ancient, a leftover instruction from millions of years of babies clinging to a moving caregiver. Studies on carrying found something striking. Infants held constantly throughout the day cried roughly 40% less overall. Then versus you today, a stroller, a swing, a bouncer, all quietly doing the job a caregiver's arms once did. And when night came, nobody put the baby down alone in a separate, silent room either. Infants slept in direct physical contact with an adult all night, every single night for their entire early childhood. Researcher James McKenna spent decades studying this and found something surprising about a sleeping adult's simple breathing. A caregiver's breathing and small movements may have helped regulate an infant's own breathing through the night. To be clear, modern safety advice on infant sleep exists for real reasons, and it deserves to be taken seriously. But the deeper truth stands. For nearly all of human history, no baby ever slept fully, physically alone. Then versus you today, somewhere between then and now, independent sleep quietly became the goal instead of the exception. Feeding a baby was just as demanding and just as communal as keeping it warm and held. In traditional societies, children were breastfed for years, not months, often 2 to 4 years, sometimes longer. This wasn't just nutrition. It also quietly spaced births apart, roughly 3 to 4 years between siblings. And when a mother couldn't nurse, illness, loss, exhaustion, other women in the group often stepped in and fed the child themselves. It was quite literally a shared community resource, long before "it takes a village" became a phrase on a poster. Once babies grew past milk, food got creative, and occasionally, by modern standards, a little unsettling. Soft marrow, mashed plants, small bits of fish, and food pre-chewed by an adult before it reached a child's mouth. Then versus you today, no puree jars, no baby food aisle, just whatever the group had found, softened by patient hands. And it worked well enough that hunter-gatherer children's teeth often show fewer cavities than early farming children's did. Feeding a child, it turns out, was never a solo task. It was one more job the whole group carried. But here's the part of this story that nobody wants to say out loud, and it deserves honesty, not comfort. Even with an entire village behind them, many children in Knox world did not survive to grow up. By some estimates, roughly a quarter of infants didn't survive their very first year of life alone. And across a whole childhood, close to half of all children never lived long enough to become adults themselves. This wasn't from indifference. It was a world with no antibiotics, no vaccines, no modern medicine at all. And the grief was real. Archaeologists find infant burials arranged with care, sometimes with flowers, sometimes with tiny gifts. Every culture on record built rituals around a child's birth, and, just as often, around a child's death. Then versus you today. Modern medicine has cut child mortality by roughly 96% since the year 1800. That collapse in child deaths is, honestly, one of the greatest achievements in all of human history. Full stop. But something else happened quietly alongside all that progress. Something worth sitting with for just a moment. The dense, overlapping village that once surrounded every child, grandmothers, aunts, neighbors, has largely, quietly disappeared. Many modern parents now do alone what an entire ancient community once did together, exhausted and completely unsupported. Then versus you today, burnout, isolation, and a baby that just won't stop crying were never supposed to be a solo project. Knock never had antibiotics, ultrasounds, or a single instruction manual for keeping a child alive. What Knock had, instead, was an entire village of hands ready to carry the exhausting weight together. And it turns out for the one thing that mattered most, that was almost always enough. So how did ancient humans keep their children alive? Honestly, they simply refused to do it alone. Grandmothers helped, fathers carried, neighbors nursed. An entire village quietly agreed. This child is everyone's responsibility. That instinct is still folded somewhere inside you. Every time you instinctively reach out to hold someone else's child. Same human, different world. Tell Ash down in the comments. Who was your own village growing up, and who is it now? If keeping one small human alive already felt like an entire village's job, wait until you see what tries to break in at night.